good at tables and charts. If you see one on the SAT, this is probably the best way to get 3 answers, or 4, however many there are, correct in a very short amount of time. So the first thing that you want to do is look at the title. So we've got regular coffee profits, and then compared to fair trade coffee profits. All right, so 2 different coffees are being compared. Okay, so if they're being compared, they can also be contrasted. What are the similarities? What are the differences? Now off to the side here, you see this side goes up in price. So it says amount US cents per pound. So 20 cents, 40 cents, you get the idea. Once here you get to 100 cents, which obviously is $1, $1.60, and so forth. And then down here you have years. Okay, and if you noticed, some of the questions did spans of years. Okay, the next thing you want to look at is down here at the bottom. It gives you a key. So the dark line is your regular coffee. And on my chart, I went ahead and I wrote that so I wouldn't forget. Okay, so we've got regular. Pardon my handwriting with the paintbrush. All right, so we've got regular coffee here. And then this one is the fair trade. So I'll just write FT for fair trade. All right, so let's look at the difference. Let's look at this one because it kind of looks easier to understand. It looks like from back in 2000, the selling price, or the profits I should say, the profits were somewhere between $1.20 and $1.40 per pound. Looks like it's smack dab in the middle, which would make it about $1.30 per pound. And if you notice, year after year pretty much stays the same. It's only this very last year in 2008 where it creeps up, not even to $1.40, but just a little bit, maybe $1.35. Now let's come down here and look at regular coffee. The first thing that we notice is that the profits for regular coffee aren't nearly as high as the profits for the fair trade. These are up around $1.30. Even in its best year, it's at a little over 60 cents per pound. So it's nowhere near. The fair trade profits is much better than the regular coffee. But let's look how this changed. Okay, so back in 2000, it was, looks like maybe 55 cents per pound, and then it drops and drops. Looks like its lowest was between 2002 and 2004, and its highest, obviously, 2008 here. Okay, but it's kind of gone up and down. So now let's go and look at the questions and see what we see. So question 19, data in the graph about per pound coffee profits in Tanzania most strongly support which of the following statements? All right, so we've got fair trade coffee consistently earned greater profits than regular coffee. Well, that's one of the things that we talked about. Look at your chart on your paper, and you can see the fair trade coffee at the top was the one that ran about $1.30 profit per pound, where the regular coffee was kind of all over the place. So I'm fairly certain this is the correct answer, but let's look at the others. The profits earned from regular coffee did not fluctuate. Oh no, the regular coffee was the one that they were like, up and down and up and down and that kind of thing. So we know we can cross off B, which again, I strongly recommend that you do on your real SAT. And then fair trade coffee profits, the one at the top, increased between 2004 and 2006. look at your chart again, look at the dates 2004 through 2006, and you're going to notice again the fair trade coffee, the one that was at the top, didn't change at all. It increased slightly in 2008, so we can get rid of this one. And then the fair trade and regular coffee earning equal profits by 2008. Well, both of them went up in 2008, but remember the top one was at the highest profit level. So even though they both went up in profits, the fair trade, the top line shows at $1.30, the other one, the highest, was nowhere near that. So they were not earning equal profits by 2008. So question 20 asks, data in the graph indicate that the greatest difference, so remember that chart was comparing and contrasting. So we're trying to figure out what's the difference. So we're going to compare the two. The greatest difference between, and again, break down your questions and answer choices, especially if you have extended time. The per pound profits from the fair trade coffee, the top one on the chart, from those of the regular coffee occurred during which period? So probably the easiest way to do this is to look at these periods and compare them. So let's go back to the chart and look at the years 2000 to 2002. Okay, so again, we're looking for the greatest difference between the two. So if we look at 2000 to 2002 here, all right, so in order to figure out the greatest distance, okay, here's the distance between the regular, the regular coffee and the fair trade coffee during those years. Okay, so greatest distance. If you're running on a track or something, or running the 50-yard dash or the 100-yard dash, and this is kind of how I talk to myself through these things. This one's a shorter distance, a little bit longer, So 2002, there seems to be a larger distance than 2000. But the question is asking between those years. So let's look at the next one. Answer choice B. Again, look at your paper. It's asking about 2002 through 2004. So these that are circled here in green. And again, I'm a visual person, so most of you probably wouldn't have to do this, but so again, going with our idea of 50-yard dash or 100-yard dash, these three have the longest distance between the two. So when we look at the question again, data in the graph indicate that the greatest difference between per pound coffee profits from fair trade coffee and those from regular coffee occurred during which period. So if this was the price at $1.30, and then down here during these years, 2000 through 2004, we had a little over 20 cents, 20 cents, 20 cents. This would be your largest difference. Okay, because here, shorter distance again, even shorter distance as far as between their profits. So this would be the greatest distance here, 2002 through 2004, which means answer choice B is your correct answer. This is the one that we looked at here. And then very briefly we looked at these other two, but the ones with the the greatest distance between the two as far as profits go. It's 2002 and 2004. Let's look at question 21. Data in the graph provide most direct support for which idea in the passage? Acting on empathy can be counterproductive. Okay, the chart, I don't see how that would come into play. Ethical economics is defined by character. Okay, let's see. Ethical economics is still possible. People fear losses more than they hope for gains. All right, so let's go back and take a look at this chart. Okay, so based on question 21, it looks like we're going to have to go back to the passage to at least get some information. But we're pretty familiar with this chart now, so let's see what we can get from it. Okay, so let's take a look at this section here. Many moral dilemmas arise when these three versions that we've previously read about pull in different directions, but clashes are inevitable. Take fair trade coffee. Okay. Coffee that is sold with a certification that indicates the farmers and workers who produced it were paid a fair wage. Okay, so that's good. It made the fair trade coffee, if we remember from the graph, if you look at that, it was the one that made the most money, but also the farmers and the workers who produced it were paid well. So it says, now we're given an example. Buying it might have good consequences, be virtuous, and also be the right way to act in a flawed market. Okay? Common ground like this suggests that even without agreement on where ethics applies, ethical economics is still possible. All right, so I think what it's saying here is that the farmers and the workers can be paid a fair wage, and yet still they can make a profit. So they're saying this is possible. We don't have to, someone doesn't have to suffer because of economics. So let's go back and look at the chart and just kind of see if we see anything that has to do with any of this. Okay, before we glance at the chart, let's look at the question again. Data in the graph provide most direct support for which idea in the passage? A, acting on empathy can be counterproductive. All right, that's not correct, because the graph suggests that people acting on empathy or by buying fair trade coffee is productive for fair trade coffee farmers and workers. So it is effective, and therefore this is what makes A incorrect, because basically it's stating that if we pay the workers a lot of money, there aren't going to be any profits. It's counterproductive, and that's not true. There were profits. Let's look at B. Ethical economics is defined by character. Well, that's not correct, because the graph doesn't provide provide support for that idea that character or people's fears factor into economic choices. It's just that information isn't found there. It can't be deduced from that. Ethical economics is still possible. Okay, I think that was actually word for word in that information that we read. I'm pretty sure answer C is correct here, because in the lines we read, 59 through 61, the author defines fair trade coffee as coffee that is sold with a certification that indicates the farmers and workers who produced it were paid a fair wage. This definition suggests that purchasing fair trade coffee is an ethically responsible choice, And the fact that fair trade coffee is being produced and is profitable suggests that ethical economics is still a consideration. The graph's data supports this claim by showing how fair trade coffee was more than twice as profitable as regular coffee. So, C looks good. D, people fear losses more than they hope for gain. Again, the chart, it just doesn't go into that. It doesn't show you any information in the title, in the years, in the profits, how fear might come into play. So C is our best choice.